the agenda. Unfinished business we have ongoing would be the community development block grant, none for this meeting.
There is a meeting coming up, though, a public hearing, Monday, December 10th at 4 p.m.
And where?
Here.
Okay, in council chambers?
Yes.
Okay. And then so, anyone that would like to attend that, everything else unfinished business, new business, we have two items for discussion this morning. The first is the Parks Department splash pad discussion. We're going to start with Steve on that.
Yes.
As you all are aware, we had problems with the baby pool. There was a broken pipe somewhere, and in order to even try to fix something, we've got to dig the whole thing up and start all over. So it would be a total replacement of the baby pool, which is chlorinated water, so it's got its own filtration system, the whole 9 yards. To totally replace something could be in the $140,000 range. People today, and I've done some research on this, and in the areas, there's issues with baby pools. They're becoming more antiquated. People are heading more towards splash pads, splash parks. I'm not advocating a splash park, but simply using that baby pool area as a splash pad. Well, my point today is I want to come to you folks because I have some numbers. This is simply, it hasn't been put out for bid. It's one company that I've talked to two, but I got a number from one company. And total install, the whole 9 yards with the pictures attached, which doesn't have to be that way, so it's on the high end, would be $194,000. Install would be approximately $76,000. Could we do it? Probably not, and do it the right way. $76,000 could turn into more, but it's like an insurance policy as well, is how I'm viewing it. But my point is, there is no money in my budget for this. I'm not exactly sure about capital reserve, but it's a movement to the future. It's for the general public, it's for small children. We're at a point right now, we had the pool totally revamped a few years back. All new lighting this past year prior to this season. Pool is starting to be used a little bit more. Now I do know Parkersburg was closed down and they're getting a splash park coupled with their pool. But we still get a pretty good influx from surrounding areas. An increase this year was not just in the water classes, the water exercise classes, but if you drove by on Saturdays, the Aqua Zumba, and I had to see it to believe it, on a big Saturday, 2 classes combined, there was in excess of 100 people. That's a lot. The pool is getting used on a regular basis. More middle school age kids are coming. Some, it's like a hangout. They're not causing trouble, but I'd rather see them do something like this than get into trouble. But as far as the small children, 8 and under, give or take, there's really not a whole, there was nothing this year. Parents would have to take the kids in the pool, and that's fine, I don't have an issue with it. But I'm trying to make this entire operation facility more friendly to the general public, all ages. That's what we're trying to do more and more in the parks. We're doing that in Spencer Park, increased events, things of that nature. I think it's a good investment. But my whole point in coming here this morning is this is the money involved. Is it, in the eyes of budget and finance, then to go to council, a worthwhile project to pursue because of the price tag? This is the high end. I feel certain it would be less than this, not $100,000 less than this. But rather than spin wheels and put it out for bid, the whole 9 yards, and everyone's going to say no, I just need to know from the group if you all feel the same way I do and feel passionate about it to move forward. So that's what I'm asking for today. And then whatever you all decide, do I then, if you agree with what I'm talking about, put it out for bid, then come back to you before it goes to council? You all make a recommendation to get council involved? Do they want to do this? That's your all's call.
2 questions, Steve. First of all, so if you sharpen your pencil, you think we're looking at $250,000 for this?
Oh, no.
I thought you said 194 to 76. to put it in?
Oh, the 76, I'm sorry, the 76,000 is included in this. You know, 108,000 or 118,000, you know, 76,000 would end up costing more than that. Unfortunately, I'm not knocking my guys. I can't expect Craig's guys to spend, you know, months doing something like this. That's why I said it's a good insurance policy as well. If there is a problem, you know, it's back on the
No, I understand,
the
that was
manufacturer.
installed by guys who do it every day. I mean, it's a pretty unique installation.
Right.
The second question, and this could involve Linda too, is because, you know, my approach to anything like this is always, are we gonna get the return for our citizens, right? You've already touched on the programs, the Aquazuma, the things that are happening at the pool. You know, in combination, and as I say, you've got a class of people, younger children, who are underserved by the baby pool because it's not what's current. You know, could we also kind of look at, you know, what kind of programs we can incorporate? Linda's, I mean, Stevie as well, but Linda's, you know, renowned for being able to develop these programs that are well attended, and to create events, especially, you know, at the onset of it coming into being. You know, that we could really surround it with a lot of attention, a lot of, you know, again, some, you know, regular planned events that really make sure that we get the utilization, you know, from the facility and get people accustomed to it. So those are really my only two thoughts. I agree, you know, splash pad, you know, and I envision this with the fountains coming up and that kind of thing.
Right.
And,
Right.
you know, so with maybe some forward planning like that, I think that, you know, I think it is, you know, an ongoing part of the city's development of services for our people, you know, giving them a return on their investment. I like the idea.
This would not be a chlorinated pool operation like the baby pool once was, simply recycled. That's what I was just talking to Craig about. The water then ultimately would go down the sewer. So we're gonna save a lot of money as far as not having to chlorinate it, not having to have those special pumps to chlorinate it. It's tap water, basically. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I'd like to address that issue. You know, Steve and I both had a lot of complaints this past summer when we didn't even have a baby pool. Because small children under 6 can't go in the pool unless they have floaties on. It's too deep. Even our shallow end is too deep at 3.5 feet. We had a lot of complaints about that because every city surrounding us now has a major splash pad for children under 8. You know, babies, toddlers. That's the age group we have not been able to service. His point about the Zumba, the older adults are now staying, they've come back. The teenagers are there. The mid-teens are there. The population that we have lost, and mothers would come up to both of us and say, what are you doing with this? We can't even bring our toddlers and our 6-year-olds over here because there's nothing for them. And that's why we really think this is the way to go. This is the wave of the future with the pools, and this is going to bring even that age group back. Our pool was very well attended last year. Steve probably has the total numbers. That's what we're aiming for. Do you know Marietta, St. Mary's, Belpre? Geez, even Williamstown's putting in something small. They're all trying to incorporate and upgrade their pools. They're getting away from the baby pool because it's chlorinated water. Parents don't want that for their toddlers. So I really think this is a great investment to get the younger children back to the pool because they love water.
Well, I think good points. I mean, because you know, for example, a mother who has that age range, 3 or 4 children, you know, either she or he's got to stay in the pool or keep their child out of the pool, and so they don't, and so it's going to exclude them, you know, from participating. So
That's exactly what happened.
You know, I think that in terms of continuing to refine the plan and getting into a format that we could take a look at and perhaps forward to council for consideration, I think I would support doing that.
I would like to see what Jim's referring to as some sort of a visual thing, where it actually is located in the pool, what your concept is for the splash pad, because when you reference the Zumba classes, you're obviously not gonna have the people that participate in the Zumba classes using the splash pool. age difference.
No,
Okay?
we were just talking about the comparison, how we've brought back all ages to the pool except for that age group.
Right, but you need to show us what your concept is, and if you've met with some company, Steve, and they've given you a ballpark guess,
There's actually pictures that were attached to this for you folks.
and that's fine. Okay, we just need to see those to see what your actual thoughts are. And then, well, I'm like Jim, I mean, we'll take it and see what council thinks, okay?
We're trying to do, it's not the same thing, but theory-wise, at the park, here's playground pieces. Well, who are they for? Well, we got a good deal on this one, or, yeah, I liked that when I was a kid. We're trying to, and you'll see as part of my budget presentation, an area for the little ones. We'd like to get a handicapped accessible playground piece. Then the middle school age kids, where they can climb and exercise. Then ultimately the adult playground. So we're trying to reach all age groups and make it very user-friendly.
I don't have a copy of what you have, so do you have a rendering from the company as to what it might look like?
Yeah, I can give
You can just email it to me, Steve, that's fine, if you can get it electronically.
Yeah, I don't have it either,
okay,
Good.
I'll make sure you all get it.
okay? And
Sounds
please
fine.
make sure you include Kathy in that.
No, she has it, I'll forward it.
Kathy has these? Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, I turned it in a while back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. And this is the high end. And I'm not saying, you know, we need the dragon head. What we're not gonna have, what I don't propose, are the big squirt gun kind of things. You know, we want kids to have fun with this, and you'll see some of these pictures. It's pretty unique. It doesn't have to be this extensive. It can be more, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity.
Right. Any further discussion on this? Okay, moving on to the next, we've got the discussion on the Streetscape project. I understand we've got the project engineer from Burgess and Nyepel here, and also been provided an agreement prepared, I guess jointly for the city and the state of West Virginia to move this program forward. So what do we have on this?
Steve, I guess what I'd like you to do this morning, if you would, just give us a quick overview of what the Streetscape project is. I know that you recently completed your 30% review with the state, and just, I mean, I know you've reached a certain point in your design drawings, and I know that you and a lot of our people, Craig and Paul and Tony Tiano, have done a lot of walking Grand Central to try to figure out what the best plan is for this project. So if you could give us just a snapshot of where we're at in this process.
Okay, yeah, we've just recently completed our 30% drawings or documents. It's basically drawings and a cost estimate. It's what we provide at that point. Highway Department calls that the preliminary field review submittal. And we made that submission. They reviewed the drawings the Highway Department has. They got back comments to us. We met here, had the meeting, walked it. There were some things that we discussed changing, and that's what I'm currently doing right now, is working from the 30% to what we call 90%, and that's what, again, they have names for all their submissions. That's the final office review, and we'll meet again here and review the documents and any comments that they have. As for the overall project, you know, it starts, for those of you who don't know, it's on both sides of Grand Central Avenue. The length of it is from 25th Street to 34th Street. And the project, of course, includes sidewalk replacement, curbing, curb cuts, and from 28th in lighting, the whole length of the project, and from 28th to 34th Street, we're incorporating bump outs, what we refer to as bump outs in the design, and that will be changing the exiting radiuses out onto Grand Central Avenue, and those bump outs will have pavers in them, concrete or brick pavers, and some trench drains in order to not adversely affect the storm drainage system that's running out along Grand Central Avenue. We do have a few site furnishings in the way of benches, and that's pretty much the crux of what the project is. And like I said, we made the 30% submittal and working on revisions now, and hope to have those finished up for the 90% submittal sometime in the early part of January. So, and then I'll be submitting those to the highway department and to the city, and then the highway department again will do their review, and that fluctuates on how long that takes. It depends on how busy they are, so, and they get back with us, and we get scheduled a final office review meeting here, and then move forward to our final submission after that, 100% submitted. So, that's where it's at. The project, like I said, we're required to do a cost estimate at each submittal. We've done one for 30%. But at that level, there's still some things that are unknown. 30% in any design project. I mean, I feel, and like I just told the mayor, there's more that we know than we don't know. Because typically we carry our drawings beyond 30% when we make that submission, because in order for us to do that estimate or to create that estimate, we have to have a pretty good idea about the amount of demo. We're using hardline drawings and able to get some good quantity takeoffs. And but there are some things with the electrical services that we don't know yet that will have an impact on the project. But by us using it, and we're required, the highway department requires us to use a 30% contingency for this 30% submission that we just made. So that hopefully buffers, gives you a pretty good idea about where you're at money-wise. But it doesn't take too many things that, it can fluctuate that, up or down. And our next submission, the contingency will drop down to 19%. So, again, the idea being that we know more, we know more, we know more, and so, we're more comfortable and required to use a less contingency on the project. So, that's where we're at, where we are, Burgess and Eichel with the project.
Okay, so in the past months, we've met with all of our public service people, fire chief, police chief, public works, code enforcement, and looked at all of the initial drawings that Steve prepared, and tried to tweak it to, allow for safety issues and drainage issues and things like that. The agreement that we have in front of us today came from the Department of Highways. Department of Highways pays 100% of all of the engineering costs to Burgess and Eichel. The grants that we received, and we received 2 of them from the state for this project, total $143,000. Of that $143,000, the city's required to do a 20% match. And so on this agreement here, what they're asking us for is a $28,000 commitment for this project. The other thing that they're asking us for is, because of the cost figures, their guesstimate is it will be best to do this project in phases. And at each step of the project, you can continue to reapply for state dollars to move the project forward. So the 2 issues that are before us this morning are, we need to decide whether or not we agree with this project and our 20% match, and send it to council for funding on the $28,000. And 2, we need to decide what area of Grand Central Avenue between 25th Street and 34th Street we want to section off in order to do this. That's the issue that I have with that, Steve. And because you're only at 30%, I'm gonna go back to the state, to Melissa Green and say, okay, we're awfully preliminary on this thing. I mean, we can figure out where we would like to start. I think that's just a decision that council will make to say, we want to improve the center of the town, or we want to start one on one end or the other and move forward. It doesn't matter. I'd like to see us get the most bang for our buck that we can. But it's, you know, up to council to decide what we want to do with that. As far as the $28,000 go, we're investing $28,000, but we get $143,000 worth of value here.
Right.
So it's a small investment for a large grant. But there again, in speaking with Amy, where would you recommend that if we would do the $28,000 disbursement, that you would take it from?
My recommendation would be cut the reserve.
Okay, so that's the issues that we have before us today, Jim. What I would propose is that we recommend to council, we recommend as budget and finance to forward this to council to get more people's involvement to say, yes, we'll allow the $28,000 expenditure, and two, where do we want to start? Where would you like to see the initial phase of this project go? So if it's 25th Street to 34th Street, how would you section that off? 3 blocks, 4 blocks, and where would you want to start? And the way this thing's designed, you can actually do one side of Grand Central, you can do the other side, you can do both sides. All right? So there's a lot of options that Steve's prepared into the plan.
Yeah, the only thing that could factor into that would be, well, it's something we'll need to know, and is with the lighting, because of the conduits, under the pavement, knowing, if we're doing both sides, I mean, that will factor into how the lighting is powered up, and what we have to do on our drawings to make sure that whatever stretch you all decide you want to do, we obviously, we're putting in lights that we want to make sure that they come on. So that's something to keep in mind.
Two questions with respect. First of all, so it sounds like the timeline is ahead of where we would be able to get into the budget process and just allocate in next year's budget. We need the money before then, correct? If we're going to proceed and keep this on schedule.
Based on the way the schedule was explained to me, Steve has 2 reviews. There's a 30% review, and then there's a 90% review.
Right.
As he said a few minutes ago, he's not gonna be ready for the 90% review till sometime mid-January. So let's even say that it runs to February. Yes, we can do that. And like I said, I need to get back to her and find out, because in my opinion, it seems like they've kind of put the cart before the horse here, because until Steve's ready to say, here's our design, why do you want our $28,000? I mean, is it a commitment to say, yes, we believe in the project, or I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
So maybe we need clarification on that, but
Yeah.
if it does disrupt the timeline of being able to move this forward, because obviously it's, again, for the same reasons. The second question I have, though, we've got in that stretch a fair amount of un- and underutilized properties and older properties, some could even be characterized as blighted. And so does this take into account, as you develop this plan, a changing landscape with some of those buildings or properties? In other words, for example, we get in the middle of this and someone decides to demolish a piece of property or design something else, because we're also right in the middle of the Manville project and hoping that, which is, along that stretch behind, but still, do we have the kind of contingency planning or assurance that if that, the structure of the buildings along Grand Central changes, somebody demolishes a building, that's not going to impact your plans, or this can kind of dovetail into that? That's another thought that I have.
Well, I mean, the only thing we know is what's there now. And, as far as something that pops, I thought of when you're talking there, is that typically, for example, where we, well, not typically, where we have vehicular access going across the walks, the pedestrian, ways, we beef those thicknesses up to allow for vehicular traffic to be going across them, like, go into the taco place, in and out, or even the other places down along Grand Central where, there were homes, I'm sure, at one time, but now they're insurance or, lawyer's office or whatever, and there's traffic in and out. Well, we beef those things up, those sections up right there, in order to, again, to take into account vehicular traffic. Well, okay, say we have a stretch right now that we don't have any of that going on, that's gonna be 4-inch concrete. And those buildings get demolished 5-10 years down the trail or whatever, and all of a sudden there's access going through there, vehicular traffic, well, it's not gonna more than likely hold up for any length of time. That might be a section there where you would need to take out, or with the part of the development of whatever is going in, would need to beef that up to account for the vehicular traffic that they're now introducing across the walkway.
So aside from that issue with, and I understand what you're saying there, with respect to everything else, as far as the lighting and so forth,
Yeah, now, right, the light, it's all gonna be set to what's there now.
right.
And, again, they'll have to work around us in the future.
To conform to.
Yeah, right, because we can't know,
Yeah, because I just could see.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe one or two things changing in the leadership.
The biggest handicap or obstacle in this whole project is the uneven sidewalks that you get when you go past the 28th Street, because that two-tiered sidewalk that's there is very difficult.
Right.
When the buildings were built, it was a different era, and so now, in order to access those businesses, you have to have that two-step sidewalk,
Right.
or ramp it, you're gonna.
Yeah, we have to ramp those. Yeah, you're talking where the barber
Everything
shop
that-
is in that
Everything
area.
that's being designed
Right.
has to be handicap accessible.
Right,
So instead of that two-step terrace, it's gotta be ramped.
right.
And then when you go on up further past 29th Street, it comes out of the businesses, you step down, and then you have a sidewalk, and then you step down again.
Yeah.
So in some instances, it's a 3-step terrace, some it's a 2.
Mhm.
But that's an obstacle that has to be addressed. And so if you say, okay, let's start at 25th Street, Community Bank and the Rite Aid at 23rd to 25th is pretty set. Okay, it's flat, there's nothing really there. But when you go from the Community Bank up to 28th Street in front of the little shopping complex that's there in the United Bank, that would be the most visual improvement that you would see, because it looks pretty plain there now. So if we went in with the offsets and the new lighting and the pavers, you would give that a fresh new look.
Well, now from 25th to 28th, we don't have any bump outs, because
Okay.
there's a turn lane.
Right.
The
Okay,
highway department's not
whatever
allowing
the
us to change
designs
that.
are that are there, it would be fresh because you've got new
Yeah,
designs.
new walkway, new
Yes.
curbing,
Yes,
curb cuts that we put in,
yes,
and then lighting.
yes,
That's what's going on through that stretch.
yeah. Yeah, oh, that's right, because when you get above 28th Street, it goes back from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. So
Correct.
then you would have the,
Yeah, and that's where the bump outs start at the 28th,
Yes.
and go to the end to 34th.
yes. But if you take that section from 28th Street north, because of the sidewalks, you increase the cost dramatically.
Right, it
All
goes
right.
up big
So
time, right.
if you want to start the project and you want to have a reasonable certainty of completing that section, you start on that end, it's all level. You don't have to deal with that. But when you start moving north is when you run into the issues of the sidewalk, which is going to be a big cost in that thing. And then you go past 30th Street and it flattens out again
Mhm.
in front of the Masonic Home and then Lambert Tapman, and then on up in front of the
Right.
Custom Vans, Bob
Right.
Dutton's, those things, it's all flat. The other side, you've got a flat section, and you run into Dollar General with a little retaining wall, and then you go to the the hair place and Elky's and,
Mhm.
you know, that. So there's sections of that that will be easier to do. So we have to decide, how do you wanna do this, okay?
Yeah, and another thing too I didn't mention is that on my cost estimate, you know, I broke it into this 2 chunks. I didn't do it by block. And so the first half was from 25th to 28th, both sides of Grand Central. That was one estimate, and then the other one was from 28th, or the north side of 28th, I should say, to 34th, or the south side of 34th, where the project ends. Again, both sides of Grand Central.
Right. And that's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
But at this point, what we need to do as budget and finance is, we need to decide, and what I would recommend is that we move this to council, let council make this decision, okay? I mean, I'm not asking for us to recommend this or anything, I'm simply asking that we forward it to council, put it in front of them, and then let's talk about it as a group, to say, yes, we're willing to do the $28,000 matching share, it's an 80-20 grant. And then talk about where you actually want to start this project to begin with. My concern with this is, based on how the state of West Virginia operates, you know, honestly, I still think we're a long way away, Steve.
well, you'd need somebody here from the highway department to.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, I wouldn't wanna elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously,
you've done
I'm not
your
gonna
job.
disagree with it.
Yeah, you've done your job, but I mean,
Yeah.
we've had this grant now for at least 4 years, okay? And we've not seen, this is the most significant advancement we've seen. Is it gonna be another 4 years before we actually start? You know, who knows? That's,
Yeah, I don't know.
it depends on, you know, the governor's office and how they allocate the funds. But at any rate, we're at a point here where we need to do something, because they've now thrown it back to us. I don't think anything will happen until Steve finishes his design work. But they want us to make at least some decisions here.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, we're headed towards the completion of the drawings, and again, I don't want to speak for them, but I agree. I feel that they're trying to line up, okay, well, you know, this, you know, it's a, you know, lengthwise, it's, you know, it's a big project, and just trying to get some, maybe you all thinking about, okay, well, what chunks do you want to bite off? And, you know, that's.
Parkersburg has done several of these, okay? I mean, you look at Fifth Street, they've done all that new lighting and brickwork all along Fifth Street, from, you know, the Tim Hortons all the way down through Market Street. It's a beautiful project,
Yeah,
and it really freshens it up.
right.
So I see the value in that, because, you know, our downtown section, you know, it's fairly dated right there. You know, there's some new facades, but really the buildings have been there a long time.
Mhm.
But at any rate, I think the thing for us to do would be get with Melissa Green and bring her to a city council meeting and say, tell us what your timeline is, tell us what we can expect, and then for us to make a decision
Mhm.
of which way to go in the future, okay?
Yeah.
I don't know, Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, you know, the question to me is simply, my takeaway from this is, we're gonna get council to determine whether we're willing to contribute the 28,000, and then we need to take it to capital reserve, and time to move into next year's budget process. But regardless, by putting that 28,000 forward, we're putting the ball back in the state's court to say, okay, we've done what we need to do. Am I understanding that correctly? And then, so now, you know, let's start breaking this down into the chunks of the project we want to proceed with.
Mhm.
And so, I guess we don't really know yet whether we'll need that 28, you know, in this budget year or not. But at least get the commitment to it, if that's what council wants to do, so that, I mean, we would start moving forward. So that's.
At that time, Steve, we would expect you to come back with some drawings that we can put up on the big screens to show everyone the design
Mhm.
that you've, you know, tentatively put together, to give them a better idea of what you know, what we would get for our money. But having said that, there are no guarantees. The state moves at its own pace, and so even if they tell us they're gonna start next year, shoot, it may not be next year. It just depends on how busy the projects are. But, I mean, we've gotten the grants, there's no question about that. Obviously, you've done your work, so it is moving forward.
And another thing you need to keep in mind too, when you're talking about time, and that factors into these projects, what I've come to learn is this is federal money, okay? That's how these projects are funded. And not only, at the very end, our last submission will be made, our PS&E submission, final submission to the Highway Department, then goes to the Federal Highway Administration for review. And you don't have, there's no way for me to guess how long that review takes place, or how long it will take. And you have to get authorization from them. The Highway Department has to get authorization from them in order for a project to be let or bid. So, and then, you know, there's all kinds of things that go on that, you know, we're not a part of. I just hear about it and hear bits and pieces. So, yeah. Having, you know, your point about having Melissa here would be good. So she could probably elaborate. Well, I know she could. She knows more about it than I do.
Okay.
So, but that factors into this time frame.
Okay. All right, so I guess what I would do then, Jim, unless you have any further questions, I would move that we forward this to council for full consideration and bring in the Department of Highways and Burgess and Nyepel, and let's see where everybody stands on this.
I'll second that idea. All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, I think that concludes our agenda. Anything else this morning? Anyone? All right. We're adjourned.
Hey, Steve, I need, not Steve, Black, I need to see you in a minute.
All right.